I just remember growing up, it was just always like, it was just kind of like a taboo type thing. It was just like kind of kept under the table and like not really talked about. Um, I never really come into contact with like gay people either because I mean, like, I lived in the boonies of Ohio, so like no one out there is out probably until like everything was like legalized. I didn't start like really seeing gay culture come around. I think whenever I was little and people would like make fun of me for it, I mean, I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't know. And like, I didn't even know that was like an option because I was always told ever since I was little, like, oh, when you find a girl one day and you love her very much, you're going to marry her. And like, that's just how it was. So, I mean, I was still under the impression that like I was going to get married to a girl. And then once I got to high school, that's when it started like really eating away at me. I just always feel like I've never been understood by people. I feel if I went somewhere else there would have been more people, so it wouldn't have been as much as like, oh, you're gay. Like it was just like you're just another person, you know. But like being at our school where there was like 1 to 2 kids per class, it was just kind of like a taboo type thing still almost, but no one really spoke about.
You becoming friends with Santos and like realizing, like knowing that he was gay, very much coincided with you questioning like your sexuality. Do you think that like just seeing like another person your age who is openly gay like kind of empowered you to question that?
I think I just had someone to like look at and like have an example led by. Like obviously I don't want to live my life like him, but like I think just like him being out was like eye opening to me. That really helped motivate me to start thinking about it and considering it and accepting it within myself too. So I think it was almost like a denial thing for a lot of the times just because I wanted the typical lifestyle that my whole entire family has and like what was taught upon me ever since I was born. So I wanted that. And so whenever I decided, when I realized that I probably wasn't going to have that, having Santos around was like helpful to like, oh, I can have a normal life and be fine. Ever since I was little, we would go to mainly my great papa's church that he preaches at in Knoxville. And we would go to the church that my dad's parents go to. Um, and that's where like his parents were married at and stuff. So they've always have gone to that church like ever since. Like that's just been their thing ever since they were born. I want to have a church wedding. Like that is all I want because like that's just tradition in my family. That's just what I grew up raised around. But like to know that it's like not accepted. And my church is really hard. I've always said I was like I have my own relationship with God and my the God that I love and that I pray to accepts me for who I am and stuff. And then I don't have to like confine tradition to what other people are telling me to do. Still to this day, public affection is so weird to me. Like holding hands, like I don't know what it is. Like I can do it, but like it just like I just feel weird about it. I just still feel tabooed about it almost. I'm just not that person to show PD in the first place. Unless if I'm like around my friends that I'm like comfortable with, but like out in public, I don't like to do that in the first place. And then obviously being gay on top of it just makes it 100 times worse.
I think partially that stems from like the fact that you did have to hide for so long.
Yeah, 100%. Because then I think about like, well, the way that like my mom would react in the show, that she would see like gay couples out in public and she'd like whisper about it. And I think that just like kind of sticks in my mind too. Like when I'm out and I like think about that, I'm just like, oh no, people are gonna like talk about us or look at us. I would like to know what it would be like to be somewhere else and be like that. Like I remember when we were in Fort Lauderdale, um, I saw so many couples just like holding hands, and I was like, why can't I do that? Like I just can't do it just because I just felt like it's not like accepted or whatever. And the bad thing, I want to move down south. That's where it's not accepted. I never looked on it as it could happen to me. And when I mean, I went to that party, and that was really like the first time hanging out with him. So I mean, he was basically a stranger. Um, and then he just kept giving me more and more drinks. And it was just like me. It wasn't anyone else. It was just like me. Waking up the next morning, I mean, it felt humiliating almost. And I had all those marks on me. It was just like, those are my scars. It wasn't like blood or anything was my scars. Like that was my scars all over me. And then Lauren and Jess came, and it was kind of like they made like kind of like a joke about it. And by then, I didn't tell anyone like what really went down. I was just playing it under the rug because like I felt like I couldn't say anything about it. And I think that's what a lot of people that undergo sexual violence, they don't feel like they can say something about it. They're too scared to say something. And everyone was always focused on, I feel like they're always focused on women's rights. And people make sexual violence a women's thing. Like this exists in other places too. And like people don't realize that. And like I didn't want to go out to the point of being of like speaking about my story, because you don't hear stories about guys and sexual violence really. Like I think it's just a very different story than what the typical story is told, but it's still sexual violence and stuff. I always try to look at the positive in things and pull out the positive of like the negative things that happened, and that's like a huge negative thing that has happened in my life. And eventually I'll be more comfortable just openly talking about it, but until then I just grow from it, and I think about it and think how I've like have changed as a person because of it. I mean, always, ever since I was little, my mom and I were like literally so close. We were like attached at the hip. She has always had like that like nice demeanor to her, and like always like understanding and like loving and stuff. And like not that my dad hasn't, but like we lived an hour from my dad's work, so he would get off at 5. He wouldn't get home till like 6:30. So like we just didn't have, we weren't as close as like my mom and I, because my mom was, she was a stay-at-home mom too, so she was always around. Junior year of high school, um, obviously I was friends with Santos, and I wanted to go to prom with like my band group, but I couldn't because everyone was bringing like their dates or whatever. So the only other person that could bring me was Santos, and they already knew about Santos was gay, and it was a big ordeal. Like we got in a big argument, and like they were like, "You're not going with him," and they were just like always said, "Well, I just don't think it's right." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "He's signing my paper to go to a dance," and they're like, "I don't think it's right." My dad was more vocal in that argument than my mom was, so I think when I ultimately did come out, I made me more nervous to tell him about it just because of the whole situation that happened like that night or whatever. Lauren and I went on a walk on the bike trail, and then I told her about it like on the bike trail. Um, I was like, I think I like a guy or whatever. She was still stuck on the stick because like everyone was stuck on the stigma of you're this or you're that or you're this. Like there was just, this is all you are, and she was still stuck on the stigma of it. Um, and she tried to be like understanding or like whatever, but then she was like still like putting a label on me, and I wasn't comfortable with that label on me yet. But she had a really good response, and she was like, well, my family 100% will always be here for you. I felt really comfortable, especially with her after that, because then I just always knew there was at least someone there, and like I knew Lauren's family would be the first people that like I could go to. And like Kristen, I mean, she was obviously excited too, but like she told people before I even met them, which that was the one thing I think I also didn't like about, and it also set me back, was like everyone was doing it for me, and I didn't like that. And I was like, well, I'm not ready to make that decision yet in my life, but everyone's making it for me. With like my friends talking about it, I always still felt like I was like on display, and I think it was just by the way that like my friends like displayed it and like took that upon themselves to do.
How do you feel now that you've like come out versus like before? Like, how do you feel?
I feel amazing. um, no, I mean I do. I mean I feel I can 100% be me and 100% fully do what I want and not feel scared to talk about like things. I took a gender violence class last semester. I told you about that. And once I had that class, it really stapled me. Like it really impacted me. And I emailed her literally like 2 days ago and I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that like you literally changed my life. Like your class changed my life. It taught me so many things about like the way we raise people and the way that society like shapes people, and like it really taught me a lot about how to be like more accepting of my own sexuality. So like that class really empowered me to like just like be more accepting of views and like understand and um just like feel more comfortable about like telling my story and like what I had to say too in like my life or whatever. And that so that I mean that ended up helping me like come out, and so that has really helped. And like so now I feel like completely like free and like I can do whatever I want to do. I think that I'm just very real with myself, and I have established a kind of like a guideline on like how I want to live my life like as a gay person. And I will just stay true to myself and like I'm me, and like I think that's like my way that I like bridge the gap between like what's accepted and what's not accepted. And I'm like, well, I'm me, and like I'll find somewhere where I can be like loved and like can be accepted and stuff like that. I think it helps that like I'm just accepting of the fact that like, and I understand that like I'm not going to like live the most normal life as a typical heterosexual sexual person does. And I think I accepted that way before I even came out. That like I just kind of fit myself into societal norms. If you're questioning, always just, be true to yourself. It's okay to question it. I mean, I questioned it for years and I denied it for years, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And like, until you're 100% comfortable and ready to be yourself, like, there will be people there that will love you, and there will be people there that will support you no matter what. So, even though you're scared to allow yourself to break free and like come out of like questioning, but like there'll always be someone there that'll be there. It's just like you have to take that step, but you have to be ready to take that step within yourself. But once you do, you feel like you can breathe and you feel like you can love again, and like you're a new person almost, and you actually can be you, and you can do what you want to do and make yourself happy. But it's all about you.